After the show, it's the after party then. After the party, it's the hotel lobby then. And after the original, it's probably this. Hold up!
Welcome to The Art of Conversation. On this show, we put the spotlight on dad bloggers, writers, and podcasters. Now, here's your host, Eddy.
This week's episode is being brought to you by Let's Get Checked. Guys, now more than ever, we want to make sure that we're in the best shape we could possibly be, but without making a trip to the doctor's office, right? Not only do we want to be healthy for ourselves, but for our family. That's where Let's Get Checked comes into play. They have tests that check up on your testosterone levels, thyroid, liver, and cholesterol, and more. Did you know that across the globe, men's healthy sperm counts have dropped by 50% in the last 40 years? Hormonal imbalances and reduced testosterone levels are becoming commonplace in modern male health. Symptoms of hormonal imbalances may include low energy or fatigue, ED, low sex drive, anxiety, brain fog, and even have a hard time making decisions. It's really scary and it's often misdiagnosed. Now our listeners can get 20% off when they go to trylgc.com/lifeofdad. That's trylgc.com/lifeofdad. Do it for yourself and for your family. What's going on, everybody? Eddy here for the Art of Conversation here at Life of Dad. And on the line, I'm very happy to have Chad Harvey. Thanks for taking the time to chat with me, Chad. How you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, man. Doing great. Thanks for having me on the show.
Yeah, man, we're going to talk about fatherhood and a whole bunch of things as well. And again, I appreciate your time. I got to say congrats on your new album, Run From the Sound. I always love talking to creative people like yourself about the process and all that, but let's just focus on this album right now. Talk about the process for this album and how do you determine, I'm always curious, like, how do you as an artist determine what songs you wanted to have for this album?
Yeah. So, this album is the first album I put out in quite a while. I took some time off and, got married, have a couple kids and been waiting to put this record out for a while now. The record label actually wanted me to put it out back in 2015 and it just wasn't feasible with my time and schedule back then. So I had a bunch of songs prepared to put on an album and we had talked about whether we do a full length or an EP. And we finally decided on an EP and we picked the 5 songs that we thought were the strongest. And I sit down with my producer, Mark Johnson, and play him the songs, just me and on my acoustic guitar. And, he might have some suggestions on tweaking arrangements and things along those lines. But through that process, I get his thoughts on what he thinks are the stronger songs, what fits the storyline of what we're trying to do for this record. And that's kind of the process. And with that, we selected 5 songs, and we kind of had some last-minute changes. I remember going into the studio for the last session. Mark had written a song that he wanted me to hear, and which ended up being the title track of the record. And we listened to it, and I put some of my touches on the song, and that was kind of a last-minute addition to the record, which ended up being the title track of the record, which is Run From the Sound.
Nice. Yeah, and that, you kind of answered my second question, too, because I always wonder when someone's putting an album together and how it all starts, maybe not just for this album, but just for things in general, since you're in that music industry and you have colleagues that work, create music as well. Is there like a track? I mean, I guess it can work depending on the artist and what their process is like, but is it sometimes I'm always thinking like, all right, so someone makes a song or creates a song, has it, puts it all together, and it's like, you know what, I can build an album around this. Is there like usually a song that a track on an album that acts as the catalyst for more songs, or how does that usually work?
It seems to be my records have been what point I am in my life. I write a lot of autobiographic kind of songs, and which may be a little different than other songwriters, at least from listening to other interviews and such. And my first record was called Get Lit, and I wrote a lot of those songs in my mid to late 20s. I was living in Austin, Texas at the time, not married, no kids, and enjoying that life and going out and partying a lot, seeing a lot of shows and writing a lot back then. So the theme of those songs, was a lot about girls and it was a lot about going out and having drinks and things along those lines. And through that process, I was trying to decide what the record title was going to be on that record. And actually at the last, near the end of that recording process as well, I came up with the idea of the song Get Lit. which is the only song that was co-written on that record with Mark Johnson, my producer. We wrote it over the phone when I came up with the idea. That was just a perfect fit for that record. So I didn't really write around saying, hey, it was going to be around a single life or going out having drinks or that sort of thing. It just kind of, that was where I was at in that point of time in my life, you know. And then, you know, Run From the Sound was really, you know, and it was all about that time when it's like, hey, I'm ready to try another place other than Nashville. And, you know, Nashville was changing. This was back in 2012, and it's a much different place now. I mean, it's grown so much, which is cool in some ways, but in other ways it's very commercialized. And you know, I saw the same thing happen in Austin as well. With that, it's all about that running from the drama or the change or things along those lines. And I was going through a lot of changes in my life, getting engaged, getting married, having kids. So it's really that transition in life that this record's all about.
Nice. And, of course, people go to chadharveymusic.com. And, of course, we'll put up links on where people can find you and, of course, purchase your music. You mentioned different places you've been and all that. Everyone has that idea of, like, okay, if you're a musician, you travel to all these different places and all that, get to see different cool venues and all that. For you, is there a trip that stands out most to you in your career? I've
been lucky to travel around quite a bit. I mean, I grew up in southern Indiana, a really small town, and didn't get to travel a lot growing up. And I've always had that travel bug. I mean, I never really went anywhere until I was probably 20 years old, other than just traveling around for trips. You know, I moved to Austin for 5 or 6 years, and then Nashville for about 5 years. And I had some really good times traveling, playing music as well. I mean, one of the highlights would be got to play the Hotel Cafe in Hollywood back in 2007. I went out there and played, which was a great experience for me. But I would have to say my most memorable trip was I was getting ready to leave Nashville, and I needed to get away for a while, and I had some time off to where I could get away. And I have a friend at that time that lived in Sydney, Australia. So I ended up booking a flight. I think it left 2 weeks after, like 2 weeks from the day I booked the ticket. So this was a really quick decision, and decided to head out to Sydney. This friend of mine, she had a flat right by the beach, and I was just like, well, let's go out and try this. And it was a good 2 weeks of seeing Australia. I'd never been down there. I traveled around quite a bit, had a really good time. And then the day I left, I jumped on the plane, which I was almost late for because I was in the airport buying souvenirs that I didn't buy for my family and stuff. So I was buying coffee mugs and chocolate koala bears and different things like that. And I got on the plane, and I ended up sitting next to two young ladies, which I sat down, and I had some Ambien that the doctor had given me for the long flight. And I'd really only taken Ambien once. And of course, they tell you that you might be, you know, do some silly stuff with Ambien. And I was just being a little funny and telling them that, hey, I'm taking this Ambien, make sure I don't get out of control. And so I ended up offering her some as well to see if, you know, the two girls, if they wanted some. They actually ended up taking some of the Ambien and some of my chocolate koala bears, and come to find out that the girl sitting in the middle seat ended up being my wife a couple years later. So we had a long flight to get to know each other between Sydney and LA, and we kept in touch. And she would come up to Nashville and visit, and you know, after a while we you know, got engaged, and I made the move down to Pensacola, Florida, where she's from.
Oh, that's fantastic, man. Thanks very much for sharing that. And, of course, we love getting everybody's take on fatherhood. Talk a little bit about how being a dad inspired your music.
It's been definitely a change in the songwriting process, having my two boys. And I still feel like I'm finding that footing, because it's definitely a different phase in life. And it has definitely changed my perspective on songwriting and life in general. Just being more conscious about things and the way that things are happening in the world, and being more aware of things that are going on. I think, you know, I joke with my wife that things scare me now that or concern me now that I would have never even thought twice about back before being a father. And I think with that, you know, things change. So, you know, you write about different topics, and you write about different things, and it's definitely been a big life-changing experience in a good way, and definitely in a good way.
Awesome, man. And talk about when you found out you're going to be a dad for the first time. What was kind of going through your mind?
Yeah, I mean, it's, definitely excited. It was something I always wanted to have a family. It's one of those things that it wasn't something that I was concentrating on, to make sure this happened, because my wife and I met in our mid-30s, and, we kind of led some similar lifestyle in the fact that I was playing music and traveling around, and she was a flight attendant, and she was living in LA for 5 years, and then she went to Boston for 5 years, and then Atlanta for 5 years. And I don't think either one of us had ever really thought that whether we would even settle down and get married. So it was this great surprise when it came together that it was just a perfect situation that, that we got together and we met. And then a few years later had our first child. So with all that, I mean, I'm just ecstatic. I mean, I love my boys, so much, and it's changed my life so much, but it's just so much better having them, and I just can't express how excited I was at that time.
Nice, man. And talk about some of the values you and your wife are looking to instill into your boys as they're growing up.
It's be kind and be respectful of people that may not have the same opinions or outlook on things. For me, growing up in a small, southern Indiana town, and I didn't travel that much, I kind of look back and think that if I've never have left that area, what my outlook and opinions would be. It's a big deal for me, and I think for my kids to travel. I want them to travel as much as possible, which I didn't get the opportunity to do. Because I think with that, meeting people that aren't like you, you can learn so much. And how can you form an opinion, or how can you really understand what's going on in the world if you're not sitting down talking to people that are just not like you? And, everybody in this world, for the most part, is going to be respectful and kind. And that's what I want. When you're sitting face to face with someone, right? I mean, so, it's a big deal for me for them to see the world and meet different people.
Yeah, no doubt. I love that, because you get to see life from a different perspective. And of course, you and your wife are trying to instill different values into your son's lives. But then also too, it's like you kind of have that, the more people understand all the different people around the world, the golden rule will come into play. So I love that, man. So thanks very much for sharing that.
Yeah.
And again, you don't have the, maybe the typical 9 to 5 that people listen to this, or maybe, and I think now more than ever, a lot of people don't have, I think now more than ever, people don't have the typical 9 to 5, right? They work from home and they just kind of adjust their schedule here and there.
Right.
Everybody has, a different structured way of how they have their family run and all that. And, it works best for them. And that's what you got to do, what works best for you. But talk a little bit about how you personally balance work and family.
It's tough. And it's my wife travels about 3 days a week being a flight attendant. So she's gone a few days a week, which gives me some great time with the boys. I still do some stuff outside of music just to stay busy, and it's like burning at both ends, but I do like to stay busy with that. We do have, her family's in town, which we have a lot of help with, but, I do find it's a challenge right now balancing work and music and family time. So I think it's just, making sure get enough sleep, get enough exercise to keep the energy level up, which is tough sometimes. But when I'm around the boys, my boys, making sure that I'm mentally there and not somewhere else, not on my phone, not texting someone or looking up something, but making sure my attention's on them, I'm listening to them, and I'm engaging with them. Yes. I think that's very important.
Nice. Very cool. It's kind of bleeds into what you just said right there. For new dads listening to this, what is one big piece of advice you'd like to offer?
Yeah, I think, I think a lot of dads, and moms for that matter, are all very busy with work or whatever they have going on in their lives. And I think the time you do have with your kids, stay focused, stay engaged, stay mentally there, with them, because I think that's, it's, if you're going to have to do something on your phone, it's almost like better just to be in another room. And I have to tell myself this a lot, because my wife gets on to me sometimes when I'm having, I'm trying to take care of something and I'm on my phone. So she checks me up a few times, a week probably on that. So it's something I struggle with and need to focus on a little bit more. And then also I think it is make sure you get enough rest and some time for yourself as well, because that's important. And I think that improves the quality of time with your kids.
That's fantastic. Thanks so much for sharing that. Great advice right there. Now we got the Life of Dad Quick 5. Favorite family movie right now? I saw on your Instagram, I believe, did you take them for the first movie theater to go see Sonic, right? How'd that go?
The first movie. And I don't know where I got this crazy idea from, but I was like, Saturday morning, I told my wife, I go, let's take these guys to a movie today for the first time. It's something we've talked about before. And my boys my oldest is 5. My youngest will be 3 in April. So I know it's going to be a little bit of a challenge with the younger one. So we looked and saw what movies were playing and saw Sonic. I will tell you that it went better than I anticipated. We were there for an hour and a half, which was not through the whole movie. I thought we may make it 30 minutes. Looking back on it, I think it all started going south when the boys ran out of popcorn. So maybe if we would have bought more popcorn, they would have made it through the entire movie. But we had a great time, that's for sure. But
nice.
They do at home. They do like Pets 2. So they do. That's one of the movies they've been watching quite a bit is Pets 2. They love putting that on. They don't like Pets 1 for whatever reason, but they do like Pets 2.
That's fantastic, man. Yeah, and not only, again, you're giving out some good wisdom, parenting advice right there too. Like, gotta keep them going with snacks, right, to keep them occupied. So
yeah, not only at the movie, but anywhere, right? Anywhere in public, just make sure you bring enough snacks, and that'll keep them preoccupied.
Well said. This question will hit your wheelhouse. Favorite song that you guys like to sing and dance to as a family, or is there a band maybe when they get a little bit older to appreciate certain things? Is there an artist you can't wait to share?
Yeah. So the other day, my oldest son, he goes to a daycare / school kind of place here in town, and it was dressed like a king or queen day, and he came up to the idea as he wanted to go as Elvis, the king, which is totally not what the whole day was about, right, at school. Yeah. So we bought him an Elvis jumpsuit off Amazon. Thank God for Amazon. It got here like the next day. And we put that on him. And he already had some glasses and things along those lines that kind of worked. And he has this little amplified microphone that he carries around. He loves to sing. And he's been singing Hound Dog quite a bit. So,
nice.
What kid doesn't like Hound Dog? I remember singing that when I was probably about his age. And so, he definitely likes that. And the funny thing is that my wife likes to sing my songs around them too. So they'll sing Hey Burn was one of the songs off the new record. They'll sing that. My youngest likes to sing this song called Pour Me Another off my first record, which is really not it's really not child appropriate, but at the same time, maybe it's not beer, it's juice, right?
Yeah, nice. There you go.
Hilarious.
Yes.
There you go. It's I joke about putting out a kids album because I wrote this song called I Got a Passy in My Pocket one morning when my kids were younger. So maybe I can put Pour Me Another on there and just refer to juice or something along those lines. So they definitely love music, but I would say Hound Dog is the pick. It was Walk This Way by Aerosmith.
Nice.
Until the Hound Dog came along. So
I gotta say, Chad, just chat with you. You have you're a good improv person. Like your improvisational skills as a parent is fantastic. Especially you're like, yeah, it's not maybe alcohol, it's juice. Kids' juice, and then there's sippy cups. So, and just certain other things you've been saying here, man. It's another good lesson, parents. It's like new dads listen to this. You always got to adapt because things are always changing. Love it, man. Describe the perfect family vacation. Where would it be?
And we're getting ready to do this here in about another month. I love, and my kids are so young, so this is all new to us. And of course, we live on the beach. Now that's been, I do split my time up in Nashville. My band's in Nashville. I'm up there probably every other week. So we have the beach here, and we go there quite a bit. I love to go snow skiing, and we're trying to get them involved with that. I didn't start snow skiing until my mid-30s, but I just love how active it is during the day. Really active, and you're just sitting around on the beach or whatever. We took my oldest last winter for the first time, and left the youngest at home. But we're taking both of them this year, and it's a pretty good vacation. My older sister meets us out there to help us with the kids, and so we get out, as me and my wife can get out and have dinner and such, and then we put the kids in the ski school during the day so they can learn, and then we ski a little bit with them at the end of the day, and it's a good time. We find a place to go sledding. Me growing up in the Midwest and being surrounded by snow at least a few times during the winter, it's something I miss. I don't miss living in it, but I like to see it once a year. So it's great to get away once a year and see that.
Nice, very cool. Asking go a little way back here. Do you remember the first album that you purchased?
Oh, yeah. Let's see. I think the first album, this would have been, it was a long time ago, of course, but I'm stating the obvious here. But the two people that influenced me when I was a kid, and still influenced this day, were Steve Earle and John Mellencamp. And Steve Earle had a record come out called Guitar Town in probably '86, and Mellencamp had a record come out called Scarecrow that same time period. And I just wore those records out. That really is where I started to really fall in love with music. My parents liked music. They didn't play music. They never sang or played an instrument. But I was always surrounded by some really good music. My dad introduced me to John Prine when I was 5 or 6 years old, and Jerry Jeff Walker, and all these country, kind of cool country guys that were involved in the Willie Whalen and the Boys kind of movement. I was surrounded by at a young age. And of course, I'm going to do a little different than, your kids always go a little different direction a lot of times than your folks do. The folks, meaning that, I was going more on the rock and roll side of things. And I really stuck on that Steve Earle and John Mellencamp. But I'm still a big John Prine fan as well.
Nice. Very cool. Thanks very much for sharing that. The last question is, what are the top 3 words you hope your sons would use to describe you as a dad?
Let's see. I would say caring, and I would also say fun, and I think fair. I think fair as well. There's always going to be those tough decisions to make, but I want them to realize, hopefully at some point, I know they'll realize the decisions that I will have to make that they won't agree with, but I always want them to understand that this is the best thing for them, which I know may not happen until they get older, but I think fair would be another one.
Nice. Great right there. I like that. To me, I want to be fair, and I think that's one of the great things you have right there. So thanks very much for sharing that. People, make sure you follow Chad on Twitter at Chad_Harvey and go to his website, ChadHarveyMusic.com. That's where you can get his music. Whatever is going on in his world, you'll see it right there. Chad, it's been an honor chatting with you. Really love your take on fatherhood, your creative perspective on music. Good luck on the album. Again, people, it's called Run From the Sound. Definitely check it out. Continued success in the future, sir.
Thanks so much, and thanks for having me on.
Thanks for listening to the Art of Conversation podcast. Leave a review on iTunes or wherever you listen for your chance to win a Life of Dad prize pack, and go to lifeofdad.com.